Welcome to Season 2 Nightlings. This is episode 50 of the Horror Headquarters, and welcome again to Season 2. I can't even believe I'm saying that. It just fills me with butterflies. We're starting off strong, we're starting off big, and this season is going to be 1,000 times better than the previous season, because that's my goal. Every episode is supposed to be better than the previous one as much as possible. Even though we're talking about different topics, I want the next one to always be more mysterious, more interesting, more aggravating for people that are listening and don't like my takes on things because I do a lot of hot takes. I mean, look at The Nun. That one receives a lot of backlash. Look at when I'm talking about asylums, everyone's like, "Oh my god, no, it's not haunted." Yes, they are. And speaking of Eloise, I finally had the opportunity to go and visit the Eloise Asylum. Can you guys believe I'm even saying that? I am filled with so much excitement about this episode. I can't wait to talk about my experience I had there. It is very gory. It is very insane. I'm like thinking of all the thoughts in my head right now, and you guys are in for a treat because you guys know, if you guys have been listening since the beginning, about a year ago, I talked about wanting to go to Eloise and I did a whole episode on it, and it's actually the most popular episode to date. So let's see if this one beats that one. We're gonna dive right in, and I'm gonna give you guys all the details of my experience. Let's go. Now, just a mini backstory for anyone listening for the first time. Eloise Asylum is located in Westland, Michigan, and it was opened from 1839 to 1986 when it was shut down by the state of Michigan. Now, most of the buildings have been demolished, leaving only a couple left standing. Starting as a poorhouse with 7 residents and climbing to over 10,000 residents and 2,000 staff members, it has become one of the most haunted locations in the world. No, the reason it's haunted is because they did a lot of unknown and evil practices, such as electroshock therapy, insulin shock therapy, as well as music, recreational, and television therapy. Now, something that's important to keep in mind is that back then, many people could send anyone to the Eloise Asylum and they would immediately be labeled as psychiatric or crazy or mentally incapable of doing things on their own, which is what happened with this asylum. And I think it's one of the main reasons why it's haunted till this day. There's just a lot of heartbreak and horrible things that they did in that asylum behind closed doors that are still unknown to the public, that they're still rummaging through trying to figure out all the histories and devastations that took place there. So that's just a little backstory of Eloise. There's obviously so much more information in the episode that I've done. I believe it's episode 4 or 5 of this podcast. You guys can scroll down all the way to the beginning of season 1, and you guys will see an episode titled The Hauntings of Eloise Asylum. Give it a listen. Like I said, it is our most listened episode to date. Now, when I found out I got accepted to go to an event hosted at Eloise Asylum, I was excited, but I was terrified at the same time. And that anxiety and terror ended up manifesting itself into real life events. Now, just to begin, I was exhibiting a really horrible pain in my chest with the days leading up to the event, which was causing me to have second thoughts about going, whether or not I was mentally and physically prepared to enter the grounds. Because if you guys have listened to the previous episode that I did on this, I feel things. I am very energetic, I'm very empathetic, and I can feel pain, I can feel certain energies of places, which a lot of people can do, of course. Like, people can tell if someone's a good or bad person based on how they act. I'm just very energetic in that way. I just say clairvoyant, but then people get upset when I say that. But I just feel certain energies. So that chest pain, I was thinking was from something else. Turns out it was from that event because as soon as I entered the grounds, that chest pain was gone. Now, something else that occurred is that the day of the event, 1 hour, guys, 1 hour before I left the house, the power in half of our house went out, like was completely out. And I like was freaking out because I was getting dressed, getting situated, putting on my horror headquarters swag to show off to everyone. And the power goes out in my room. And I'm like, oh gosh, it's a power outage in the entire neighborhood. Nope. It was only our house. Turns out that one of our fuses like exploded, I guess you could say, and they have to like fix the entire thing outside. They still haven't done it, by the way. So to my energy company, please get on that if you're listening to this because I'm afraid that I'm going to lose power again, and I don't want that to happen. So that happened an hour before I left, and I'm like, this is a sign. And my mom could see my frustration and my anxiety building on my face, and she's like, don't go. She's like, if you're feeling like it's going to be a bad experience, don't do it. And I told her, and I straight up said, guys, and I quote, no, I have to. I've been waiting this long. I have to see what's over there for me to experience. So I got in my car, so much traffic all of a sudden. Like, every single road was closed. There was an accident at every corner. And then, by the way, before you guys say that's all coincidence, there was an accident right on Michigan Avenue where Eloise Asylum is. Right at that intersection, there's an accident. And I'm thinking the whole time, is this a sign? Am I not supposed to go to this event? And I was trying to think of my tuition and I was trying to like really channel in and see, is this going to be a bad experience? Should I turn back now or not? But I will say this is probably one of those rare times where my intuition was completely clouded with excitement and anxiety at the same time because the anticipation of wanting to go to Eloise for so long was gravitating me towards the place. But at the same time, my entire body was filled with anxiety, was filled with so many aches and pains because I was worried about what I was going to experience. Now, I felt a shift in energy heading down the street towards Eloise. We were kind of pretty far away from it. When I say we, I mean I in my mind. I wasn't that close to the building, but about like a mile out, I started to feel a shift. And keep in mind, Eloise Asylum used to be about 80 buildings wide. Like there was a lot of buildings to it, and there's only like a couple left standing. So thinking about that, keeping that in mind, there's obviously houses where there was buildings, and that kind of freaks me out because I don't know how people can live in that area with that. Anyways, and I felt this shift of energy, and I was heading down. As soon as I turned onto Michigan Avenue, I saw a little like pointy thing. I don't know what they're called, but it's on top of the building. And I said, "Uh-oh, it's Eloise." Fun fact: I have never seen Eloise in person, and I've lived in Michigan for my whole life. So seeing it for the first time sent shivers down my spine. But I will say, as soon as I turned into the parking lot, that anxiety, that stress, that pain in my chest evaporated. So it could be the anticipation leading up to the event, but I'm telling you, I felt completely calm. And when I feel calm about going to a place like this, it's one of two things. The place isn't haunted, or something horrible is going to happen, and there's going to be like a really big extreme shift as soon as I step in the building, which I ended up experiencing. I stepped out of my car. I was freaking out. By the way, I did record all of this. It's like 6 minutes long. That's why I didn't release this episode as a video episode because it would have been too short and you guys would have been like, what the hell? So that's why I'm doing an audio podcast episode of this one because the footage is so tiny. But I might upload it to YouTube or I might just upload it as a bonus episode. Who knows? We'll see. So just walking towards the building and I'm like filled with so much excitement, you guys. Like, I can't believe I was actually at Eloise and I was invited to an event to experience the haunted areas. Like they took us to the asylum and to sublevel one, which the asylum is where they treated, of course, all the mental patients. And then they also took us to sublevel one, which was the basement. And I was kind of terrified when I found out it was the basement because walking into the building, I have a witness, Aparna. Hopefully, I'm pronouncing her name correctly. Aparna, if you're listening to this, I miss you and I really enjoyed meeting you at this event. But we were walking like up the stairs because like the main event was at the top. Like they just have some food and a DJ playing music. You get to meet with a bunch of people before you go to the haunted tours. And as soon as I was walking up the steps, I stopped and it felt like some kind of wall hit my knee. And it was right between like the intersection between the basement and going up to the second floor. And my partner's like, wait, what? And I'm like, I just felt something stop me. Like there's something in that basement. I don't know if we're gonna go down there, but I felt something and that terrifies me. That energy shift, you guys, was probably the most terrifying thing I had witnessed at that moment because it came literally out of nowhere. I was just walking frivolously. I hadn't felt anything yet. Like, obviously, there's an unsettling feeling being inside the building, which builds from anxiety. But that was the first moment when I had felt something truly like touch me in a way that kind of made me terrified of what's lying below. And that's when I started doing my research. I'm like, is that sub level one? And it was. So I'm like, oh, I'm screwed. That's it. Like this is the last day of my life. But we had a party. We got to meet a bunch of people that were excited about the haunts, and we walk into the asylum. Dun dun dun. Now I went to the asylum with three people: Tiffany, Aparna, and myself. And I was trying to be like a trailblazer and be like all tough and be like, I'll stand in the front, like I'll protect all you guys. That was a big mistake because as soon as we walked into the haunted tour, I was immediately scared and I was caught off guard. Like they scare you as soon as you walk in. And if you guys have never heard me scream, I have a very high pitched scream and it's kind of hysterical to listen to and it like kept the mood of going through this whole haunted tour very light. So everyone was laughing, having fun, but at the same time we were terrified for our lives. I have to say, Eloise Asylum, you have the best haunted house that I've ever been, or haunted tour, whatever you guys want to call it, that I've ever been to in my life. Because I've been going into the things since I was 13 years old. This one was beyond my favorite. Like, wow. Like, the special effects, the layout of everything, and how big they are. Like the asylum was 17 minutes, and then sublevel one was 17 minutes. That's 35 minutes of continuous walkthrough of getting scared of all this special animatronics, all these actors that have this crazy makeup on their faces that look so realistic. Like I was truly shocked, but I have to say the worst part of it all was there was a skin room. Yes, there was a skin room. And when there's a skin room and it's pitch black, it's one of my worst nightmares because you're waiting until you bump into something that's gonna scare the shit out of you. And that's exactly what happened. Something just came out of nowhere, just started screaming, running towards me. Something you have to keep in mind. You cannot touch these actors, but they can touch you. No, it's not like a crazy, like over exaggerated touch. It's just like a tiny touch, maybe on the shoulder, on the back, or they might even blow in your ear. Whatever it is creepy as hell. Because when you're in pitch black and there's like no light inside and you know which way to go, you're waiting for something to happen, and it always happens when you're least expecting it. Now, going through this haunt, something that I took notice to is how many flashing lights there were, all the sound effects that were making my eardrums go crazy, and I definitely wasn't prepared for how exhausting it was going to be to get through the haunted asylum. This is just the first part, don't forget. This is just the asylum section. There was a whole other section which was in sub level 1, which we're about to get to. Now, finally reaching the end of the asylum section, my adrenaline was at an all-time high. Like I walked out jumping up and down, like, like what's the next one? Like I want more. Like I love this. This is so interesting. I was so stressed going into this, and I was holding a lot of stress from like just previous days, and like obviously there's stress that comes with life, and I was ready to get it scared out of me. This is one of the reasons why I like watching horror movies or like going through these haunts because it scares the stress away. Now, people think that's psychotic. I personally love it. It's very therapeutic to me. Now, call me a psycho all you want. I gladly accept that. I don't care. Now I'm like, oh, is that it? And I'm like, this can't be it. This was only 17 minutes. And they're like, no, there's the basement over there. I'm like, oh my God. And I looked at Aparna and Tiffany. I'm like, no, we're going to the basement. And walking down, that shift of energy happened again. The board that I felt on my knees earlier that day was there again. And I was like feeling so weak throughout my body. And I'm like, you know what? I'm going to stand in the middle for this one. Someone stand in front of me. I felt bad. So, like, 2 minutes in, I ended up standing in the front. But I have to say, the basement was even more horrifying than the asylum. I think just knowing that so many people were killed, especially in the sublevel, as well as the asylum, of course, I started to feel the energy. And being that you bury people 6 feet under, I was feeling it. And it started to weigh really heavily on my heart, and I was trying to distract myself, like trying to close my eyes and be like, just push through, you got this, you can do this. But that weight just kept getting heavier and heavier and heavier. But thankfully, with every scare, it was refreshing. And then it would get heavier, heavier, heavier. And after every scream and scare and laughter, it was enjoyable. So I tried not to think about it too much. I am still shocked by how cool it was. I wish I could have recorded it because these haunted walkthroughs, you guys, the makeup on these people, I can't emphasize enough how accurate it was, how freaking insane it looked. Like it looked so realistic that you wouldn't even think that these are actually people. Like you'd think that they're like aliens or something. Which there was an alien room as well, which freaked me out. But I can tell that they put a lot of thought and a lot of money into creating that haunted walkthrough. So to anyone that's interested in doing something like that, especially Eloise, I 100% recommend going to it because that was such a fun experience, and having to do it with people that I've just met that day was even more hysterical. Aparna and Tiffany, shout out to both of you guys for getting through it. Tiffany, especially a shout out to you because you didn't want to do it in the beginning, but you pushed through and you ended up enjoying it, which makes me really happy. Now, something I want to touch on is when I was in the lobby all by myself, when we first walked in, I had like my little mocktail with Aparna. I started to feel an unusual feeling. And I'm like, there's something over here on like this other side of the building. Walked over and heaven behold, there's a whole display case of products that they used while Eloise Asylum was up and running, such as like plates and spoons and prongs and straight jackets. Like, I don't like that. Don't like that at all. And there's all these pictures of like nurses holding straight jackets and holding needles and doing surgeries and doing like all these different surgical processes, the electroshock therapy chair. I'm like, I don't like this at all, not one bit. And I thought that would be the worst of it. When we were sitting on the second floor, awaiting to go into the haunted tour, I know I'm kind of jumping back right now, but when we were waiting to get in line for the haunted tours, I was sitting behind a door. Now, I didn't know I was sitting behind a door, but I leaned back and my head hit the door. And I want you to think of the scariest sound of a door opening or closing in a horror film. That's exactly how it sounded. And I'm like, huh, I'm not turning around. And I told her partner, I'm like, just look through. What do you see? And she's like, oh my God, there's one of those rocking horses that kids used when they were kids. Turn around, there's a rocking horse looking directly at me in the eyes. Freak out. I'm like, okay, I have to record this. I have to take a picture of this, which, if you guys are following us on Instagram with the Horror Headquarters, you guys will see me posting that video. It was horrifying. And then I took my phone and I decided to just record the interior of this room that I had never been in. I'm like, I wonder why it's closed, and I wonder why there's this freaking horse, a rocking horse, looking directly at me, and why it's at the front of the freaking room as well. So I take my phone and start recording. I don't see anything, but I will say that there's one picture that I took that would not come out as not blurred. It's the file cabinets that were laid against the wall, and the lighting on it was completely different than any other part of the video, as well as the pictures I took. So I took a picture of that one area and it was blurry, and then I took a video, and there was never a time where the light wasn't blurred in that specific area. Now, before you guys say it's the window, there was nothing wrong with the window. It's just a regular, natural window. So it just makes me think, what's inside those file cabinets? Is it death records? Is it certificates, death certificates? And I'm just interested in it now. And I want to know what it is. But in the end, I have to say, walking the grounds was the least stressful of the whole trip. Just being outside of the building, it's such a breath of fresh air. Because knowing all the horrors that took place inside that building, knowing how many people have lost their lives inside of those buildings, of records that still have not been identified, of peoples whose graves are unknown, there's just so much mystery surrounding Eloise Asylum. And I can't even believe I'm saying this, but I'm actually considering doing a overnight stay, which they actually have those. I can't believe I'm saying that. As soon as I said that, I have stress in my stomach now. But they have this thing where you can stay from like I think 9 p.m. until 4 a.m. in the morning, trying to escape the asylum basically. Obviously they keep you until 4 a.m., but you sleep there, and they end up having all these weird occurrences that happen to you, and you can go on ghost hunts inside and see if you hear anything. I know a bunch of people that have done it, and a lot of people that don't believe in this kind of stuff and they go, it's a joke. They leave absolutely horrified, and they say they can't even step foot like near the grounds of the asylum afterwards, because a lot of the stuff, it's actually things that happen and they know it's not like animatronics, they know it's not special effects, because they have to sign a waiver. saying that they're not going to record anything, that everything is just purely coincidental, obviously, but it's not. So I'm open to that, or maybe just a 6 p.m. to a 9 p.m. tour of the building because there is multiple different areas of this asylum. Like it's not just the asylum and then sublevel one. There's other parts, there's other levels to it, and I want to see all of it. Just going to Eloise was such a blessing. I'm so grateful to have been given that opportunity. I knew I had to start off season two with a bang, and I'm hoping that you guys have enjoyed this episode thus far. And hopefully, this encourages you guys to give Eloise a try. I don't know. I mean, if you guys are interested in the asylum at all, if you guys are nearby Michigan or just nearby the asylum in general, I do recommend giving it a visit. Just make sure that you are grounding yourself. I wore my Lucky Twitches necklace with me the whole time because it does help me feel grounded and protected from any evil. So coming back, I didn't feel any evil attached to me, which is a good thing because you don't want to feel that. A lot of people think because I talk about this kind of stuff that I want to leave with something attached to me or something lingering, like eating off of me. No, I don't want that. I want to leave in good spirits. I don't want to disturb anyone's peace. And I feel that I've done that because I came back and I didn't feel any energy. It was completely gone and I just had my necklace on me and I was safe. So just make sure you're grounding yourself when you go. You're going with a good intention. You're not going to disturb any bad spirits or anyone that's still lingering the halls. Now, a lot of people are going to think that I'm crazy by saying this, but it's just a good thing to keep in mind because you don't want to play with the spirit world and don't want to mess around with that kind of stuff. Just like what I say with the Ouija board, don't insult a Ouija board. Don't insult like and like make jokes when you're using a Ouija board, which I don't recommend even using in the beginning. Do not touch that. It is a demonic device. I mean, just as an example, I was recently in Salem and we went to a museum and they had a magician there and he had a Ouija board, but he did not use it because he stated himself, this stuff is real. I'm not going to mess around with it. I just use this for looks. And like we thought that he was going to have one of us go up and start playing with it. And I'm like, I really hope he doesn't because if he knows better, he will not do that. And if he's an actual magician, he will know that that stuff actually works. And seeing that and seeing that he didn't use it, I'm like, okay, this guy is legit. I believe him, but that's actually going to be saved for a different episode because there's a lot of weird things that happened that day. And yes, I did go to Salem. See, like I'm teasing so much stuff now. I'm preparing the Twitches episode. I'm preparing Coraline. I have my short film releasing October 13th, which is called Visions. There's just so much planned, you guys, for the rest of this season that I cannot wait to discuss with all of you guys. I am going to be visiting the Masonic Temple in Detroit, which I also did an episode on. I am interested in visiting the Traverse City State Asylum. Just so much excitement, so much to come for this season. I can't wait for you guys to see it all. But in short, Eloise Asylum was phenomenal. It was such a joy. It was something that I will never forget because I really did enjoy myself. And I never thought I would be saying those words, leaving an asylum like that. I feel like I would be leaving terrified and horrified more, which I'm not saying that I'm not, but it's more so good things because I went with people that have good energy, that are kind and respectful. And I knew my boundaries. Obviously, if I got uncomfortable being inside there, I'm going to leave. I'm not going to stay and I'm not going to continue to put myself in that situation. But being that I grounded myself before going in, I went in with good intentions and I came back with good intentions. So I was good, and it was a great experience. And I can say to all of you guys listening, Eloise Asylum is haunted. I can confirm that. Now, I don't confirm any place is haunted unless I've been there personally. Now, I can say it's set to be haunted. It's like this is a haunted building, but I'm not going to say 100% that it's haunted unless I visit it. Same thing with Traverse City State Asylum. Same thing with so many other places. Now, I've been to Masonic Temple, just the exterior. That place is filled with horrible energy, really bad energy, and demonic energy. I'm just putting that out there right now. But with that, that's the end of episode 50. This is the end of the first episode of season 2. Wow. Wow, wow, wow. Thank you guys for getting me through this past year for listening all the way through. If you guys have, I really do appreciate that. Please leave a comment below if you guys are listening on Spotify. The comments are open now. Please share this with a friend that's interested in going to Eloise Asylum, someone that you want to go to Eloise Asylum with, someone that you want to spend October with and do really cool stuff with. Eloise Asylum should definitely be on the top of your bucket list. And hurry up because they sell extremely quickly. Like, they probably have already sold out most of October, if not the entire thing. So check that out. Like I said, share this to your story, tag us, and we'll give us a shout out. And I'll give you guys a shout out on the next episode. I love this fan base. I met so many great people at this event, and I can't wait to see where this podcast goes for this second season. Make sure to follow us on Instagram at the Horror Headquarters, as well as on all our other social media platforms, which you guys will find linked below in the description. There is so much to come. I am very excited, Nightlings. But until next time, tread very lightly and pray for forgiveness. Midnight hour is approaching. Happy International Podcast Day.